Welcome to Beneath the Force, the Vishal Gondal show. In my entrepreneurial journey of over 20 years, I've had the pleasure of knowing, interacting, and being friends with some of the most amazing super achievers. Each one of them have achieved success in their field by harnessing their knowledge, passion, and wealth, and have become the force of good. It takes years for one to become an overnight success. I am trying to decode what they did so differently in these years to be where they are today. My guest on the show is Divyanshu Ganatra, a solo paragliding pilot, a scuba diver, a marathoner, a trekker, and now a high altitude cyclist. And I forgot to tell you one important thing. He's absolutely blind. Divyanshu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vishal. Good to be here.
Awesome. I hear that you are embarking on a big mission this year with a few other blind people, and tell me more about it.
So, yeah, I'm excited about the expedition that we're doing in July, August.
It's called M2K.
M2K, which is a cycling expedition where we'll have 7 blind cyclists on a tandem cycle. We'll have 3 amputees and 1 person with a spinal injury who's a paraplegic, who will all ride from Manali to Khardungla, a distance of about 550 kilometers to the world's highest motorable road.
Wow. And all these people are doing this for the first. I mean, of course, you have done this before, but all the other people are doing this for the first time.
Yes, everybody is doing it for the first time.
And how does it work? Are they cycling alone, or there is somebody with them? How does this entire event work?
It's an inclusive cycling expedition. So you have tandem cycles for the blind. So you have a sighted captain who navigates the cycle, and you have the blind as a stoker and they work together as a team.
And what is this cycle? Is it a special cycle? Where do you get this from?
So these are called tandem cycles. These are meant for 2 people. These are synchronous cycles. So you have to pedal together. You have to work together. One person can't ride this cycle. You need 2 people. And unfortunately, we don't get these cycles in India. We have to import them, get them made there. We're the first to launch tandem cycling as a sport in this country. It's interesting because usually cycling is a solo sport, but with this, it no longer is a solo sport. It suddenly becomes a team sport.
So let me put this in perspective. You are actually getting a tandem cycle, which 2 people ride, with one able-bodied person, the pilot, and the second person on the cycle is either blind or paraplegic or some kind of disability. And they are going to be riding this for how many days, you said?
So, first of all, only the blind will be on the tandem.
Okay.
The amputees will be on regular solo cycles, MTBs.
Okay.
They can be single amputees or multiple amputees.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who's a wheelchair user, the person who's paraplegic, they have a special cycle which is called a hand cycle.
Oh, wow.
And it's designed for these terrains. So this also is imported from the US. Currently are about 32 cyclists, including able-bodied solo support cyclists.
Mm-hmm.
The captains, the blind strokers, the amputees, and plus, of course, you have the support staff.
And this starts from Manali. And in how many days do you reach Khardungla?
12 days. Reporting is on 29th of July to Manali. We flag off on the 30th. And on the 9th of August, we should be on the top of the world. The same thing repeats for second batch, starting from 12th of August to 24th of August.
And this is literally at the highest motorable road in the world. That's where you're going. What is the height over there? It's like 18,000 or?
18,350.
18,350 feet. So you're literally doing an extreme sport, and then you're doing it on literally the highest motorable road in the world, and you are taking blind and other differently abled people. Are you crazy? I mean, why are you doing this?
I believe everyone can, and the problem is that you get overwhelmed when you think of it as 550 kilometers, you think of it as 18,350 feet. It's very overwhelming. I agree these are tough terrains. I agree it's tough. It's not easy, but break it down. Break it down. If I tell you, can you do 50 kilometers a day? What would the answer be?
All I can tell you is that most people listening to this show have never even ridden a cycle for a few kilometers. It's insane. I mean, I can't even think about it.
But that's what makes it fun, because there is a challenge to it. There are many variables, but there is There's an element of challenge. There's an element of risk.
How do you go ahead and convince somebody who's blind to do this?
There are many people out there who, especially in my community of persons with disability, who want to do adventure sports, who want to get out there, but don't have any opportunities.
And how do you convince them that, hey,
for
this
me,
is an opportunity and they should be doing this?
I just have to present the opportunity and then talk them through it.
So nobody ever came to them and even presented an opportunity like this?
Never before. In fact, most of the world has constantly told them, you can't do this. If you're blind, you're not even allowed in a swimming pool.
How do you train for this?
So the training has started almost 4 months, 5 months before. We pair them with pretty good cyclists.
How do you convince them to do this?
I don't really have to convince them because I believe, and I believe it's an amazing experience. All I tell them is, this is what we're going to do, this is an amazing experience, this is my experience, and then just explain the process to them, that what is expected of them, what is expected there, what can they expect.
And what does this training entail? What do they do in the training?
So the training would begin with orientation, the training would begin with understanding disability, getting to know the tandem cycle, getting to know their partners, and then simple, just riding together. So the captain and the stroker ride together, they practice together, they do this as a community. And over time, they barely even have to communicate verbally. I get to know my captain so well that I know when my captain's tired, when I need to push, when the captain knows when I'm tired, when we need to shift gears. I know when a bump is coming. There is lots of things happening on the cycle. It's very dynamic, but we understand all of this completely non-verbally. Because on those altitudes, you got to save energy. You can't keep talking. You can't keep telling me left, right, whatever. You can't keep giving me instructions.
And then you ride like half a day, the whole day. When do you rest? Is it like a resting period also in this? Or
So, on an average, we ride about 50 kilometers a day, which is not much. Roughly, we start at 7 in the morning. We should get there. So, I've done this last year, and I did it in 8 days. This time, we're going to do it in about 11
You've
days.
kept a
So,
buffer, okay.
yeah. So, it's much easier this time. 50 kilometers is not very, very difficult. You have all day. So, you start in the morning. You can keep your pace, take your time. And even if you get there by about 1:32 to the next campsite, we're still in good time.
yeah. No, I mean, this is absolutely amazing. It's scary as well as inspiring at the same time is one of those things. I know, this is going to cost a bomb. So how are you raising money for this? I know I contributed to it on your crowdfunding webpage, and we'll put that link for others on the comment section. But how are you raising money for this?
Adventure sports of this nature, the biggest challenge is to raise funds. So we put up a crowdfunding link. Outlay is roughly about 18 lakhs that we have to raise. And firstly, thank you for your contribution.
No, I mean,
And
I
that
had to
goes a long
support
way.
this. I had to support this in any case. I mean, this is so amazing what you're doing.
So people can contribute anywhere. For me, even if somebody contributes 200 rupees to it, I still would respect them the same as somebody contributing 2 lakh rupees. Companies can come forward, or organizations can come forward and sponsor some of the things. Like somebody can sponsor the gear, maybe somebody can sponsor the travel, maybe somebody wants to sponsor t-shirts, whatever, or cycle, anything.
So tell me something. How does an event or an adventure like this changes the life of a disabled person?
One of the reasons why we do adventure sports or outdoor sports and set up our not-for-profit called Adventures Beyond Barriers is because there are millions of people who are persons with disability in this country.
I mean, it's like some 30, 40 million people in India alone, right?
Way more than that. Way more than that.
Wow.
So we don't have the exact numbers. But if you go by the world statistics, you go by the world averages, you do some math, the number is roughly about 200 million people with disability.
200 million people. That's almost 20% of our population.
15, yes.
15, 20%.
15 to 20%. So what the world statistics says that any given developing country has roughly about 15% population which has some form of disability. You have such a large community of people with disability, and we are the largest invisible minority population in the world. You haven't seen anybody, you don't know anybody personally, you don't have a single friend with a disability, you didn't go to school with somebody with disability, you don't see us in restaurants, you don't see us in cinema houses or workplaces or public places. So you just never realize that this whole population exists. And there is a lot of shame and stigma associated with disability in this country.
So we're going to talk about the disability issue in detail, but my question to you was that why adventure sport? I mean, why not train them to become skilled? And there are other things. Let's figure out a way to get them employment. There are, you hear of all these other initiatives which is around training these people and getting them jobs, etc. Why would you want to use all your resources to make them do adventure sports?
Well, simple. There are two reasons. One, because I love adventure sports.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah, and so there is a selfish reason there. But I also believe that while it's important to train them in skills, like vocational skills, while it's important to educate them, all those are important things. But the most important thing is your mental attitude. And adventure sports and outdoor sports offers you an opportunity to really work on yourself, work on your attitude, work on your mental strength, on your self-esteem, on your confidence, on your motivation.
So you are taking people with very, who have literally very limited resources and confidence, and you're directly taking them to the top of the world, literally, in that sense.
Yeah, because after that, they're invincible. They come back and they can generalize it to almost anything in life. They know that if they can do this, they can do anything.
That's an amazing way to look at it, right? I mean, so do possibly the most extreme thing you can, and then all the other things seem very, very easy. So that's literally what you're pushing them to do.
Absolutely.
So let's start.
So I'm going to give you an example. So I so vividly remember this. We also run marathons, etc. And I remember this girl. We were training this bunch of blind people to start running marathons.
So let me repeat. Blind people to start running marathons.
Why not? You need feet to run. You don't need eyes to run.
Well, but there's a huge crowd and, there are all these roads. There are khaddas on the road. I mean, how do you navigate?
Just the way you do. And you tumble down, you pick yourself back up again. And there's pushing and shoving even otherwise. So somebody shoves me, I shove back. Big deal.
Well, I never thought about it that way.
And also, we pair them with sighted allies.
Okay.
So every blind person is paired with a sighted ally, and they run the marathon together. So you're just like helping me see or navigate, but otherwise we're running together and we're doing it together.
And apart from marathons, you're also taking them for treks.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy, right? I mean, when you're trekking, there are stones, there are, you can just slip one wrong feet and you could be tumbling down the hill. All these things can happen.
And that can happen in your city too. In fact, I've never had an injury in the city, in the mountains.
You've only had injuries in the city.
I've had most injuries in the city. Never once in the mountains.
Well, it's said that crossing the road is more dangerous than climbing Mount Everest.
Absolutely.
That's what Kuntal, who was in the show last time, told us. So
I agree.
You're literally taking that example even for people with disabilities.
Yes, because while I'm walking in the city, there are all kinds of ditches that appear out of nowhere. I mean, yesterday it was a nice, smooth, tarred road. Somebody came last night, dug a deep hole, and that's my death trap. Or you have billboards at my face level, so I smack my face. I have wires at my neck level, so I'm practically dangling by those wires. Branches coming out of nowhere. You have dog poop. People don't clean after their dogs. Thank you so much. But
dog owners, please.
Yes.
Please.
And all kinds of things. So there are risks anyways.
No, I understand there are risks, right? And you taking this risk yourself is great, but I still don't know. It's difficult for us to convince healthy people to do these activities, right? Absolutely normal people, try convincing them to go for a trek, try convincing them to cycle or do any of this. It's difficult. And how are you managing to convince differently abled people with disabilities to opt in for things like this? How are their families taking this?
Oh, it's not easy. It's not easy, Vishal. Just like your mainstream community has people who don't want to do adventure sports or who think it's too risky. There are able-bodied people whose parents say, no, my son or daughter will not go climb a mountain. Similarly, even in the disability community, it's no different. The first thing is deconstruct disability. How do we define disability?
disability,
So
a way to
disability.
not able to do something.
But if I enable you to, will it remain a disability?
Absolutely no.
So you see, disability is not a physical thing. It's a social construct. It's the way we've designed the world. So the only disability is the one in the mind and the way the world is designed. My handicaps come from the fact that this world is not designed for somebody who is blind. It's not designed for somebody who's in a wheelchair. Because if it was, my disability never comes in the way at all.
So I think it is in a way the society labeling a set of people that you can't do this.
More than labeling, the society not creating equal opportunities.
No, I mean
Which
it's
cause,
because they think
yeah.
they can't do it, right? I mean
Correct.
nobody
So-
could even thought about a blind person going and doing parasailing, right? I mean,
So now this is the stereotype, right? That you decide for me as a able-bodied person that I can't do this. So when I went for rehab, that's exactly what happened. That when I went blind, they told me all you can do is make cane furniture or chalk.
so tell me something. I mean, before we get into your rehab and other things, give me an example. Tell me, how did you convince a person and their family to opt in for a tandem cycling? Tell me the story. How did you do it?
Talk to the person,
No,
generate the
I'm
interest.
talking about
then
not.
then also
I'm
talking
asking
to
for a concrete example.
Yeah.
I'm saying, give me an example of a person, or not in tandem cycling, in anywhere, where you had to go from scratch, and it was the most toughest for you to convince them to opt
Okay.
in for either running or.
Yeah. Okay. So there's two girls, and out of a family of 7, 5 are blind. They come from a pretty disadvantaged background economically, and the father believes the girls are just meant to do house chores because anyways they're blind. So what good are they? And these two sisters were to fight to keep them getting education. Their father was convinced that it's no good to keep them in college. Then we convinced these girls, why don't you come for a run with us? And they were happy to come for a run, and they came for a run, and we saw that they were really doing well. We started getting them to train a little bit, and there was a marathon coming up, so we said, why don't we participate in a marathon? Would like to. The girls, both of the sisters, jumped at the opportunity. They said, absolutely, we would love that, but our parents are not going to, my family is not going to allow. And this is a marathon. So we had to go and talk to...
This is what, 42 kilometers? 20?
Oh, no. This was 10 kilometers.
10K, okay.
And we went and talked to her parents, and we said, we really would like them to do this. We will take care of them. We will be responsible. This is where we'll go. This is who they'll be with. All of that. Very reluctantly, their father agreed. Very reluctantly. Interestingly, these girls were phenomenal. Their first marathon, they timed 52 minutes in under 10K.
52 minutes. Even I can't do 52 minutes.
52 minutes. And they started getting podium finishes. They started... Their timings was better than professional marathoners.
No, absolutely. I mean, 52 minutes for a 10K is amazing.
So what started happening was, first professional marathoners used to say, oh, we have to pair up with a blind girl. Oh, how slow will we need to run?
No, it's how fast.
And now it was exactly the reverse question. We're like, no.
Can you run this
Can
fast?
you run this? What's your personal best? And they would say, 10 kilometers, it's 1 hour, 5 minutes. I'm like, add 5 more minutes. And I'm like, sorry, sir, you don't qualify. And they're like, what? What do you mean you don't qualify? I'm like, yeah, you're too slow. They, what do you mean too slow? I'm like, yeah, my girls are running in 52 minutes. That started happening. So we had really, really excellent quality runners, and then they started getting their personal best. They started talking about these girls on news channels, dedicating their Boston marathons to these girls, getting these trophies, getting medals, and all this started going back home. That's when the fathers saw all these trophies, when the fathers saw their daughters in the news, in print, in TV. The next time around, we had a marathon. We have to get there very early, so 3 o'clock in the night we have to leave. 3 o'clock in the night, he comes and says, make sure my daughters run well today. Take good care of them, but make sure they run really well. The only sad ending to this story is that the girl I'm talking about died at the age of 21 because of cancer. But she did not die as a blind girl. She died with an identity as a runner. And she had hundreds of runners who had come to wish her well when she died of cancer, because she no longer carried that identity of a blind girl.
That's really, really powerful. I think you've literally changed their life and lives of all the other people you are touching with your amazing initiative. So before we go deep into that, let's get to your story. You are nothing less than an inspiration yourself. And when we spoke last, you told me that at the age of 19, one fine day, you could not see. Tell me what happened that day.
I was diagnosed with the condition known as glaucoma when I was about 17. I'd gone for a regular eye checkup because I thought I had got a number. Before that, I had no trouble with my eye at all. And for some reason, the doctor, on a hunch, on an absolute whim, decided to check my eye pressure on a crude instrument. The eye pressure turned out to be very high, and he asked my dad, to get some more diagnostics done. When we did that, it was confirmed that I have a condition called glaucoma.
And this is when you were 17.
This is when I was 17. The diagnosis was handed to me literally like this. The doctor kept looking at me for about 15-20 minutes, peeked, poked, prodded, said nothing at all, no word. And about 20 minutes into it, he just looks at me, says, "You are going to go blind." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I ain't going blind. There's no way I'm going blind because I can see perfectly well. What the hell? I don't have any symptoms. There's nothing wrong with my eye. Why would I go blind? And he says, "You have a condition called glaucoma, and it's like a ticking time bomb, and we don't know when."
And there are no medicines, there's nothing you could have, or some surgery, or nothing could have been done that time?
So there is medication, but the medication is not curative. The medication is preventative. So it's only to prevent or manage the condition. And in high pressure glaucoma, which was in my condition, my condition was high pressure glaucoma, my pressure was almost 7 times out of normal.
7 times?
6 to 7 times out of normal. So it was very, very rampant. So I was on sulfur drugs. I was taking like 4 Dimox tablets a day sometimes, eye drops. I went through surgery, all of that. And until 19, I had lost about 50% of my sight. However, even with 50% of your remainder sight, it's a lot of sight. It's enough sight to fool yourself and to fool the world. So I was still driving around. Not that I recommend,
Okay.
but yeah, I was still driving around, and it's not difficult actually.
Well, especially in Pune, I can tell you that everybody, they ride on the wrong side of the road. So at
Yeah.
least you were driving on the right side.
So, and then at 19, one morning I just woke up, and that 50% I lost overnight. And when I woke up blind, I thought I'd woken up in the middle of the night, so I thought I should go back to sleep. A couple of hours later, I get up again, and it's still dark, and I'm like, no way, why can't I see anymore? And I knew my study table. I knew exactly the things that were there, and I bent down to really see if I could see, and I kept bending down until there was a candle on a candle stand, and that the wick of the candle poked my eye. I'm like, God damn it, I did not see that wick. I mean, that's the moment when it hit me that I'm gone blind. That was the moment I realized what it means to be blind. Because you can close your eyes and walk around and all of that, but that is not blind. Blindness is when you have your eyes open and you do not have the choice to see.
And who was the first person you called?
Interestingly, I tried to pretend because it was too much of a traumatic thing for my parents also. Although they knew someday it will happen. Our brain, I guess, puts you in denial because it's too shocking or it's too traumatic, so it doesn't process it. So I never told anybody. I just walked around pretending to see. I knew my house very well, so I could walk around. And, well, they figured it out because one day I was addressing I guess it was the next day or something. And
So for one full day, you didn't tell anybody you had gone blind?
I never told anybody.
One full day?
They just figured it out. Maybe they figured it out sooner or later, but they just figured it out. I never told them I can't see anymore. I addressed the chair as Dad. I was talking to the chair.
And all of 19, I mean, this must be quite a shock to you.
It was. It's traumatic. There's no other word for it. It's traumatic. It's depressing. It's you feel angry. You feel. It's not easy. It's a very difficult transition.
So, so once your parents came to know about this, once you came to know about it, how did you start dealing with this?
Initially, of course, there's just depression, or just I just hang, just do nothing, sit around, mop around. The more unfortunate part is you lose your friends also. It's not just my sight I lost my friends too, because, and I don't blame them. I guess that happens because they just didn't know how to deal with me anymore. Because these are a bunch of boys, I would play cricket or go on the mountains or cycle with them, and I could no longer do these things with them. So if I'm in the part of the conversation and they're discussing about going up a mountain, I would assume that I'm included, and then I'm all ready to go, only to realize nobody's coming for me. And then slowly you realize that you never were included in that plan because, well, they don't know how to take you.
And when this happened, what was the reaction of your college and your school and your teachers and principal? How did they handle this?
So I essentially quit college. But I had quit college slightly before that because I was studying commerce. I'd done my 12th prelims. I still remember the day I was reading D.M. Mithani. There's a economics book by D.M. Mithani.
Hmm.
I so vividly remember that day. I was reading that book and I said, this ain't education. I can't be reading about how many mangoes one needs to eat before you feel the 12th mango is worse than the first mango, and the 11th is a little worse than that in diminishing marginal
Marginal
utility.
utility,
And
yeah.
I'm
I
like,
remember
crap,
that,
man.
yeah.
12th mango is just as awesome. And I'm like, this ain't education because I'm just not getting anything out of this. So I just threw the book out of the window. And I said, I'm quitting education if this is education.
And what happens once you are once you go blind? Is there some kind of a therapy? I mean, what happens? How do you start dealing with it? Is there a process? I mean,
The professional thing to do, or the right way, right approach would be to get some rehab and counseling and get to learn how to live independently as a blind person.
mhm.
It's not the end of the world. And a couple of months into my blindness, my parents and I decided that it would be wise for me to go and check myself in a rehabilitation center for 6 months and learn the ways of the blind. Because you really have to relearn everything from putting toothpaste on a brush, which is quite a task, trust me, especially when you're blind and sleepy. And I thought maybe the rehab center will teach me that.
and
So
and and you are the only son, or you have other siblings in your family,
I have an elder sister.
or your sister?
Yes.
So it was
So
not just your parent; it was your sister also, who must be like really traumatized with this whole episode.
absolutely, absolutely. It was a very very difficult time as a family. So I check into the rehab center, and what happens there is very very interesting. So this is what happened there. So as soon as I check in, I'm shepherded into this room along with other newly blinded people who most of them are come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and the first thing that hits me is the stink of the smell. The smell is terrible. The whole place is stinking. And I'm like, come on, my nose is working overtime. This place stinks. Can we do something about this? The same room is where we were served food. The way we were served food is you have chapatis thrown at you, literally thrown at you. And the rule is simple: if you can grab him, you can eat him. This is no way to treat a human being. I really, really felt that day that I had lost my sight, had not lost my dignity. And none of these people had lost their dignity. And then I was taken for counseling, quote unquote counseling, and you have this whole round table full of some stalwarts, and they kind of started talking to me, and I said, what can a blind person do to stand on his own 2 feet? What do blind people do? I did not know a single blind person up till that. I was the only blind person I knew. Not one single blind person. And I go to rehab, and they're coming out of the woodworks. I mean, there's just blind people everywhere. And this is what they tell me at counseling. I'm like, what do blind people do for a living? And they're like, what are you going to teach me? And they say, well, we're going to teach you how to make cane furniture. And I'm like, nothing wrong with it. But you've heard of Neil Kamal, right? 20 years ago, Neil Kamal made a big splash.
Mhm.
I'm like, nobody's going to be using cane furniture anymore. Everybody's going to move to plastic. And then they said, we'll teach you to make chalk. Again, come on, guys.
Chalk.
No future in it. There must be something better. And then they do all kinds of whisper, and then they come up with this, yes, we have this course for you. It's a 6 months course, and we will teach you how to become a telephone operator. I'm like, for real? 6 months? All you got to do is punch in a number and say hello, which I already know. So what are you going to teach me for 6 months?
We know you didn't do any of that. And you
Yes,
ended up
because-
becoming, having a major degree in psychology.
Psychology was still far away. Before that, what I asked them was, what are my choices? They said, these are your choices. I said, 20 years ago, IT was very, very hot. Everybody was talking about computers. I said, why can't I do something in computers? Why can't I make a career in computers? And they said, are you gone mad? They're like, the mental rehab is next door. I'm like, come on.
So you actually
So they said, you got
wanted
to...
to learn computers.
I wanted to do something that in which I could make a good career. And there's nothing wrong in making...
And this was like late 90s. This
Yes.
is like 1997, 98.
late 90s, 93, 95,
95.
95, yeah, 95, around
95,
95, yes.
yeah.
And they're like, you're blind. How are you going to use the computer? You've got to accept reality. These were the words. You've got to accept reality now. And this is your reality. You are blind and you've got to accept that. I said, I accept I'm blind, but this is not my reality. Why can't I do computers? And they said, you can't. I said, you don't decide for me what I can or can't.
So clearly the system completely failed you. And I don't think so. The system was designed to reach your vision and your goal. How did you do that?
Well, I quit rehab. That's the best thing to do. Quit rehab.
Quit rehab. If anybody is listening, the worst thing to do is rehab. Quit rehab. And then how did you take
1 hour.
control of your own life?
So that 1 hour probably taught me way more. And the best thing was when I came out of rehab after an hour, my parents were still
You
sitting
didn't
outside.
even go into rehab.
I was there for an hour and I had checked in for 6 months.
That counts.
But the best part of this whole thing is my parents were still sitting outside and I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, what took you so long? And I can't ask for better supportive parents than that. They let me decide for myself.
Hats off to your parents. I think they probably were your absolute backbone, which kind of let you get here.
100%, more than 100%. And when I stepped out of that rehab, I thought, okay, I'll go to some coaching classes. There are lots of these training institutes mushrooming now, and maybe they'll teach me computers. None of them had sort of a blind person coming and asking them if they can teach computers, because here I am asking them to teach me computers when I can't see the screen. And they're like, but you can't see the screen. I'm like, yes, I can't see the screen. Bit of a technical problem, yes, but we'll figure it out.
So how did you learn computer? How do you code or how do you program without looking at the screen?
I by-hearted the whole damn thing.
And this was so in
It's just-
in the late 90s, you must be
yeah,
using a
486
PC. 486 and
yeah.
586 and Pentiums.
And my pride was my 500 MB hard drive.
Oh, wow. 500 MB was
Yeah.
a big hard drive. That
Big.
Seagate.
Seagate.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if nobody's there to teach me, I still got a brain on my shoulder, so I can teach myself. And everybody around me was still sighted, right? So that's the first prototype of a human screen reader. Grab them and make them sit beside you and read the damn screen. I will learn. It doesn't matter if you don't know computers.
So you used to type dir
Yeah.
and directory used to appear
Yes.
on your DOS.
So I would know, absolutely. So if I thought I had pressed something wrong, I would start all over again.
And how many times you've accidentally deleted your work?
Oh. That I would be very careful with. But I have crashed systems and I've done all kinds of things. But that's the best way to learn. I feel the
So
best
you
way to
learned
learn.
coding? You learned coding?
What I started doing was started doing coding.
In
but
which
very
language were you learning coding?
so I did C, C++, and then Windows 3.11 came, and then I started learning about communications technology. So that's what I started doing.
And you must be using Word and Lotus 123.
Lotus 123.
Yeah, that was the time when Word Star and all these things were there.
Then they were your
Debase.
Debase.
Debase
Yeah.
123. Yeah.
so all of those.
Wow.
And
You're reminding me of my days using computers.
but that's such ancient technology now.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
so ancient.
Yeah. So ancient. Yeah.
So
But we had to start from there.
But that was incredible because my first break came from Data Pro Information Technologies Limited. If you heard of email boxes, and there was to be, even before the internet came in, we were setting up email communication email boxes. So just like post office boxes, people could actually come and collect their
Email.
mails
Wow.
through these private post office boxes that are collected that they can rent out.
So this is before VSNL launched their email.
Correct. So I started working in with Data Pro Information Technologies in setting up this communication.
This is the Canodias, right? The guys who own Data Pro.
I don't know. I
Okay.
never worked with
Okay.
the owners. I worked in this organization and as a consultant. If you've heard of Zmail,
Yeah, of course I would.
yes. So Zmail, I was working extensively with Zmail, and then VSNL, and then ETH Dishnet happened.
Mm-hmm.
Then we started working on OCR and OCR technology with CDAC and iLeap. It got canned late.
Yeah,
very
but
badly.
this is the language version, right? iLeap was also the Lippy. They also had Lippy. Yeah.
Correct. So, but this was also part of the OCR engine and the text-to-speech engine, all of that happening at the same time. So, started working in that. I spent about 6 years in IT.
How do you used to actually use your computer without reading the screen?
So, about a year and a half later, roughly, Windows 3.1 came, and with it came JAWS, which is Job Access with Speech. This is a screen reader that reads out the entire screen to me. So for the first time, I could start using the computer completely independently. And this technology absolutely liberated me.
Wow. So technology is the one which actually came back to help you.
Absolutely. Because now I no longer needed anybody to read. My reading and writing came back. And that's a phenomenally powerful tool to have. Your reading and writing.
And then as part of that, what all projects were you involved in?
So I was involved with a lot of internet-related projects. I was related with a lot of hardware. I was doing a lot of hardware work. So most people, computer hardware is very, very like Lego.
You have all those PCBs which you were supposed to put in the slots.
Absolutely. Nothing fit the wrong place.
Yeah.
So it was the perfect thing for the blind,
So
actually.
you've actually assembled computers. Huh?
I have. I've assembled computers and all of that. And back then, it was all about assembling computers.
Yeah.
Nobody went out and bought a branded
So
computer.
there was a power supply. You used to buy the motherboard. Then
Correct.
you used to buy the VGA card and
Mix match everything in the price, and everything is a mix match, and you just fix it together. The interesting thing is nobody, even today, opens their computer if something's wrong.
well, I have opened a lot of my computers.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people are scared of looking what inside, and then they look what's inside and they get very scared. And it's not scary. It's actually very, very simple.
So tell me something. Aren't you an outlier? Is it possibly why the rehab centers want to not make people learn computers or make them do adventure sport? Is because they consider you a outlier and think this is not what everybody can do. It's an outlier.
It's what everybody can do, but they don't want to empower. There are people who want to keep us disempowered. Because what will happen if the entire community gets empowered? Then what happens to their organization, their charities? No longer charities will come. So charities is just about humoring the person until the next day. And this is not me. This is Oscar Wilde who said it in 1871. That charity is a failed model. Charity is never about empowering somebody. If you think about it, Africa receives the most amount of aid and has been receiving the most amount of aid for years together.
Forever, yeah.
And nothing has changed. Because all that aid is charity.
So you decided to take your destiny in your hands rather than having somebody else control it. And that first took you to learn computers,
Yes.
get a career in computers.
Yes.
And then what? How did you get into psychology?
So I did computers for about 6 years, and by then I had helped set up training institutes. By then I had worked with the government to frame IT policy for accepting computer or IT as a viable career option for the blind and included in the list of the career options. And I was doing quite well, but I proved my point. And while I was doing IT, I was also starting to get into artificial intelligence and programming machines to do what the human brain does in terms of using IT to empower lives. And that's when I started reading up about the human brain, and that fascinated me. That was, I believe, my first torrid love affair.
So cognitive sciences really
Absolutely.
excite you.
Absolutely. And I realized that it's such a marvelous piece of 3-pound flesh that we have on top of our shoulders, but it's just so marvelous because what we take for granted, the simplest of things, to make a machine do it is so complex.
So complex, absolutely. So tell me something. Since you are also in the cognitive space, without having your brain to burden with sight, which takes so much of your cognition power, does it actually improve your other cognitive powers? Do you actually experience that?
So what happens is, yeah, probably because 74% is your sensory modality. So suddenly a large chunk of your brain's processing now, your visual cortex is freed up. In my case, for example, when my visual cortex is no longer being used for visual processing, the brain doesn't let the visual cortex just sit there idle. The brain says, you got to do some work, man. You're not going to sit there. So it starts doing auditory processing. So if you put my brain under the scanner, my visual cortex would be doing functions that it's not designed to do, such as auditory processing, memory, all kinds of other things that it's not designed to do.
No, I've actually seen you use your phone and, use your text to speech. I mean, that speech is so fast, I can barely understand what they're talking and you're processing everything.
But people read fast, right?
So
and you
hear
read fast and as a matter of practice, right? Over a period of time, you start reading fast and start comprehending what you're reading.
So can you tell me like a sentence, how your OCR or your voice reader tells you how fast?
You want to
Can you tell that sentence?
or speak it and say,
Yeah, speak it and say.
I'm in the middle of something.
I didn't get it.
You keep listening to it, you'll get it.
Okay.
Give it 18 years of just listening to it.
So basically, you can understand speech at literally 2x the speed.
Yeah, because speech is what I'm listening to all the time. My screen reader is something that I'm listening to all the time, practically from morning to night. Again, so neuronal plasticity is something that happens. It's very much something a brain is designed to do. You also start developing your cognitive processes in terms of, for a visual person, if you see something or you read something, you just remember where you saw it. You don't remember the content, because remembering the content would mean more cognitive effort. In my case, I may not have the choice to get access to that content again, which means I have to remember it.
So you can remember phone numbers, you can remember...
So if it's important to me, I will remember, absolutely. So for example, I do trainings and I meet people, I remember names. But that's because it's important to me. And we all, as growing up, we used to remember so many phone numbers, right?
Yeah.
We
Now
all
we've
used to.
lost it. Now we've lost that art because of the phone book.
Correct, because of mobiles.
Yeah.
We used to borrow books from the library and we used to borrow different books and then we had to return those books. So we had to remember information, and we did remember information. Now all you remember is, I Googled it somewhere. So it's just the way we now processing information differently.
So which degree did you go and get for psychology, and how did they enroll you for that?
So yeah, 6 years later, I thought, well, I've done my bit here in computers. I'm done with it. And I would like to go and really pursue psychology and mental health and study the brain. And that should be easy, I thought. So I went to enroll myself back to college. So here I was, almost back to school. And they said, you can't study psychology because you're blind. I'm like, whoa, here we go again. And they're like, it's a science.
So I think when somebody tells you you can't do something, that's your cue that I have to do this and do it better than anybody else.
That's the word you should not use with me. Don't tell me you can't do something. Just be careful about using that word with me. Because if I really, really want to, I will spend the rest of my life doing it or trying to do it.
So how did you convince the college to get you in that course?
So there was a lot of back and forth, and then they said, we have a rule. I said, excellent. And this is an old college, a 100 years old college. I'm like, wow, you have a
Which
rule.
college is this?
Ferguson College.
Ferguson, Pune. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a big college, yeah.
And I said, wow. So you mean to say 100 years ago somebody wrote that 100 years from now there will come a man who will be blind and who will ask you for admission to the psychology department. Deny him. I'm like, come on, show me the rule. Because if you have such a rule...
And what was the problem? Why couldn't they not have...
Because experiments, apparatus, how can a blind person do it? How will he work with patients? Blah, blah, blah. Total crap, if you ask me. But
So how did you get the turnaround?
Because there was no such rule.
Okay.
Because I gave them two options. I said, show me the rule. If they're excellent, if you can show me the rule, it's time we changed it. And if there ain't no such rule, there is no such rule. You just
Give me the admission.
have to give me the admission. And I drafted a legal sounding letter. at home. And the minute you send a legal sounding letter to any institution, the shit in the pants. And they're like, okay, fine. So after that, it was pretty good in Ferguson, no doubt about it. But when I went for my master's, their shit hit the fan. Because half the staff wanted me there and the other half did not. And the half that did not want me there made absolutely clear that they did not want me there.
But why?
They just did not want me there. Just did it. So this is what they told me on my face. You'll be no good. How will patients work with you? This is not a subject for blind people today.
You are wasting somebody else's
Seed.
opportunity and all that.
And I'm like, whoa. And the person who told me this, that you would be no good as a therapist, I still respect him because he's a great researcher. He's a great scientist. He's a very senior theorist. And respectfully, I had to tell him this, that you're a great theorist, sir, but don't try your hand at therapy. I want to be a therapist, not a theorist. And they would like draw scatter diagrams on the board and say, Divyanshu, what's the scatter? Give us a solution. I'm like, give me the scatter, I'll give you the solution. They're like, not a problem. I'm like, not my problem either. Get out of class. Oh, no problem. It's the same outside as inside. Or they would give me a D grade. I'm like, excellent. Because you know that I know you can't give me a F grade. Because if you fail me, it goes for re-evaluation to somebody else. And I know very well that I've not done so bad that I'll fail. So the best you can do is D, no problem.
How did you end up finally passing the course?
Oh, I passed out very well with a B+. Because you average it out, you still have the opportunity to get A's and O's in others, right? You average it out. B+ is not bad, right?
Absolutely good. It's very good.
And for me, my objective was to get the degree and get out of there.
And after the degree, what did you do?
I was the first to get placed from my batch.
First to get placed?
Yes.
And where did you get placed?
Tata Service Hall, Tata Business Services, TBSS,
Wow.
Tata Business.
And what was your role there?
I was working as senior executive HR.
Wow. Directly into HR, huh?
Yeah,
All
that
about
happened.
people.
That
All
happened
about
by,
people.
and that happened quite by accident in a way because I was a guest. I was invited as a panelist to an MBA college, and one of the senior HRs from TBSS was also a panelist. He said, "Would you like?" He gave me an offer right there. He said, "Would you like to work with us?" I said, "Are you asking? I'm ready for the offer. I'm going to be finishing my course sometime soon, and I'll be happy to."
And didn't they have a challenge, you cannot see, you're blind, and how do you kind of cope up? And because companies, while they
Yes.
say all these things
Yes.
that we are open for differently abled people, and of course now there is a different trend, but
Yes.
15 years, 10 years back, that was not the case.
Yes. So 2005, when this happened, it wasn't the case at all. But interestingly, it's the people that make the organization, right? And the people in the decision-making capacity only ask me one question. We want to know how you're going to do your work and what will enable you to do your work. As long as you can get their work done, it doesn't matter to us if you do it with your eyes closed or your eyes open.
Got it.
And the decision makers there stood by it. And they continue to be my mentors even today. They're amazing.
So let's just recap, right? You turn blind at the age of 19. You go into rehab, don't complete your rehab, get into computers, become very good at it, and then suddenly get into psychology, finish your psychology course and get into the corporate world. After that, somehow you leave everything and get into adventure sports. Now, how did that happen? I mean, how, I can still understand this path, but this whole thing of adventure, what connects adventure in your life? I mean, what happened? How did you get into this?
So I run two organizations. So 2006, I quit Tata's and I started my own organization. So I continue to work with corporates in behavioral facilitation, but I also have continued to be in adventure. So growing up, I was always climbing mountains or cycling or climbing trees or going underwater.
No, but that's
And that
pretty
was
much,
growing up.
as most young people do
Correct.
that, right?
But I always wanted to be in the mountains. I always wanted to make people fall in love with the mountains, with the outdoors, because I believe that only if you fall in love with something can you protect it. You can't read about it in books and go to the mall on weekends and then talk about protecting the environment.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what environment. And that's all I wanted to do. And of course, I love sport. But when I went blind, that was the one thing that was very, very difficult for me to continue to do because there was no opportunities at all. So, and of course, there were other priorities that took over. So there were other things to do, there were other things to learn. And adventure sport took quite a back seat. And when I managed to do other things, settle down in terms, quote unquote, settle down. I don't know what is settling down, but I started thinking of going back to adventure sports. I started climbing mountains and I started getting a bunch of people together to escort me through the mountains, who would escort me, guide me through the mountains, who would start doing stuff that everybody does. Because often they would say, "Oh, we'll pick this easy one. We'll pick this mountain. Why we pick this mountain? Oh, it's easy." I'm like, "Why would you pick something that's easy?" "Oh, but then it's risky." I'm like, "Come on, you guys are doing it, so let's figure out how to do it safely." But I don't want to do it just because it's easy.
So again, a odd question. Since you anyway can't see, what difference does it make whether it's an easy or a difficult mountain?
Not for me, but for them. I'm not the one who's getting anxious. They're the ones who are getting anxious.
So
because
you were
they have to
fine. You were fine doing any.
I was absolutely fine. I trust you. If you're my guide in the mountains, I will trust you. If you tell me to step somewhere, I will step exacally there and nowhere else.
So okay, this was all trekking in a way, not mountaineering.
Yeah,
Which was the
So trekking, even if it meant climbing, rock climbing, whatever it is, that's where we.
no? But what was the first serious adventure sport you did, which was like, which people said you can't do?
So about now almost 10 years ago, when this whole adventure thing started coming back to me, what also came back very strongly was me wanting to fly, because that was something I wanted to do.
Fly?
Yes, to fly. That was something that I wanted to do as a child, right from childhood. And I think everybody wants to fly. Everybody looks up to the sky and says, "Hey, it would be amazing to fly with the birds," right? And then you grow up and the world tells you you can't do it, and you start believing the world. I said, "Well, that's what I always wanted to do as a child, and that's amazing, that's fun, I want to fly, so why can't I fly?" I thought that should not be that difficult. I started asking instructors, and they started freaking out because they said, "But you're blind, how can you fly?" I'm like, "What does blindness have to do with flying?" And it took me 7 years.
To
7
convince somebody.
years to find one instructor who would believe and say, "Okay, why not?" So I would ask, literally at the end of it, I would ask 3 instructors every single day, "Can you teach me to fly?" And I want to fly by myself. I don't want a tandem. I want to learn how to fly by myself.
But how can you do? I mean, how can you do that if you can't see the terrain? How do you fly by yourself?
So it's a myth that pilots fly solo. All pilots are looked after by a whole set of people. There's a whole team that's looking after them. There's the ground control crew. There's the launch crew.
There's the ATC.
There's for regular flights. There's the air traffic controllers. There are all kinds of people looking after the pilot. The pilot has the best seat on the house, but he's constantly receiving radio communication.
So we always used to hear the autopilot flies everything. So that's really what it is. It's everything is autopilot.
In your commercial flights, practically. Pilots are going to hate me for it, but yeah.
You might as well have a blind pilot.
Yeah. But then I don't fly commercial.
Okay.
That's also because there will be no passengers who will want to fly
Yeah.
if they know there's a blind pilot. I fly gliders, which are non-powered aircrafts.
So how did you get onto the first glider, and which insane person let you do that?
So this is the story of how it happened. So what started happening was over the time, or a period of time, I started getting a pattern. And the pattern that I started noticing was that when I approached instructors or people, they would first see my blindness. The minute they saw my blindness, they would be very awkward. They would freak out. And my next question would be, "Would you teach me to fly?" And they would be like, "Yes, come back." La, 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 la. Or finally they would say no because I would be persistent. So then I changed my tactic. I started calling people up. Now we're equals, right? They don't know I'm blind.
Yeah.
So I would ask all sets of questions and all of that. And this is what happened that day that I asked. So it was Anita, who is my instructor's wife. And she and my instructor, Avi, they run a school together called Temple Pilots. It's a flying school. And I called
they're
up.
in Kamshed.
Kamshed, that's right.
Yeah. By the way, I've been told to go there a number of times, but my wife just doesn't let me go. She's like, "No, you cannot do paragliding on your own." So I've not been there.
Has your wife said she know that I fly?
Well, after this episode, I'm sure she's going to let me do it.
Tell her if a blind guy can.
So I think it is probably me
Same.
more than my wife. I should not blame her. She's anyway. So yeah. So Kamshed, guys, is the best place for people who are listening. That's the best place, at least in India, for paragliding.
Yes. In fact, it's one of the top 10 places in the world to fly, and it's right here in our backyard.
Just like an hour and a half from Bombay.
Between Bombay and Pune.
Yeah.
And so I called up, and Anita gave me the whole download of how to register for the course, what to expect, la 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 la. And I'm like, "Great, can I sign up?" And she's like, "Yes, you can sign up and you can start." And I'm like, "Excellent. Just one thing. I'm blind. I hope that's not a problem.
Asterisks.
Yeah.
I'm blind.
And Anita is like, blind? Haha. What do you mean blind? I'm like, blind as in blind, blind, can't see, zilch, blind. She's like, haha, good joke. I'm like, no, 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 no. I am blind and I want to fly. You just said I can sign up. And Avi happened to be there. Like, I could hear Anita telling Avi, there is some guy on the phone. I think he's pulling my leg. He says he's blind and he wants to fly. And fortunately for me, Avi must have been in one of his bestest pilot moods. He gives her a thumbs up and says, yeah, sure, why not? Call him over. And
Are you
Anita's like,
serious?
what the hell's going on here? So she's like, okay,
Come over.
Come over tomorrow morning, can you? I'm like, yeah, sure, I can. The next day I go and we have a nice long chat and both Avi and Anita are there and they understand my reasons for doing it and then we figure out how we'll go about doing it. It was never a no from them. It was never a no. For some reason that eludes human rational thinking, it was just a yes from the heart, from the word go. And that's it. We signed up and first we decided we'll do it this way and we'll do it that way and we'll take this contingency and that contingency. And finally we just dropped everything and we said we'd just do it the regular way. We just use radio communication.
So how do they tell you? How do you navigate on a flight?
Every pilot gets radio navigation and you're radioed in. So I was getting radio instructions. The critical period, there are two very, very critical periods. One is takeoff and the other is landing.
Yeah.
Landing is more critical sometimes because you have no engine. So there is no thrust. There are no second chances. Once you're locked into land, you're locked into land. Now you're going to land like a watermelon or you're going to land on your 2 feet. You're going to land safe, but you're going to land anyways. So they would give me altitude. So they would give me 50 feet, 40, 30, 10. And there's certain maneuvers you do as you keep coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And just before you hit the ground, you apply brakes and you cut your speed.
And then how many flights have you done so far?
So I've done one full solo flight.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'll start my advanced lessons. So
and how many years?
It took me
6 months.
6
How
months.
much time for learning how to fly?
6 months. 4 days.
4 days.
4 days.
Is it that fast
It's that easy.
and that easy?
Yes.
Wow,
Aircrafts are
I
designed
need
to
do
fly.
that. I need to do that.
4 days. You can do your first solo flight in 4 days.
Amazing.
It took me 7 years to find an instructor. It takes me 4 days to learn how to fly.
Wow. And you have a record to be now I think, India's first solo blind paragliding pilot.
Yes.
And after paragliding, what else did you do?
Then, of course, I climbed mountains and then
You've
I
been
started
to a
cycling.
glacier also, right?
Milan, yes.
And how high was that?
Milan is about
16,000,
16 or 17,000. Yeah. That was way back again. Milan was before my flying.
Okay.
After my flying, then I started cycling, running marathons, doing scuba, learning scuba.
Scuba. So tell me
Yes.
about scuba, right? I mean, that's again one of those hardcore things which you have to train for.
Yes.
And
So scuba is something that is still work in progress because it's quite for me particularly scuba is more difficult, quote unquote, because of my struggle with claustrophobia.
Oh, you have claustrophobia.
So I have claustrophobia. That's a huge thing to battle against.
But
when you're
how do you have claustrophobia? Since you can't see, how do you know whether you are in a box or you're not in a box?
claustrophobia is not about whether you can be claustrophobic even in this large room, and you can be claustrophobic even inside an elevator. It's an emotion, like it's a build-up of anxiety where you start feeling trapped in. You feel you can't breathe, and I guess it's also underwater. I have very little control because I have no sensory perception. See, what happens is when I'm flying, I'm still using my senses. I'm still in
You
control.
can hear, you can...
I'm still doing things myself. With scuba, the biggest thing you use, the biggest sense you use, or the only sense you are actually dependent on is your visual sense. And you take that away, what's left?
And when you go underwater, what do you see? I mean, you can't...
I can't see. It's an experience. It's extremely meditative. The fact that I can just calm myself down, overcome my claustrophobia. So I've also just slept for a little while underwater. Literally gone to sleep for a couple of minutes. Take a nap. It's beautiful. It's very, very... So scuba is anti all adventure sports. because it's a lazy man's sport. The lazier you are,
The more you'll enjoy
the
doing
more
scuba.
you'll enjoy doing scuba, and the more you'll stay underwater because you're consuming less oxygen.
That's an interesting way to put it. So, all the lazy people out here, it's time to move your asses and do scuba diving.
Yeah.
And after scuba, you did your solo cycling, the tandem cycling from
Yes.
which you did last year.
Yes,
Tell me
August.
more about that.
So I've always loved cycling, and something that I did as a sighted person, and then there were no tandem cycles here. However, I got one tandem cycle, and one of my friends, I started cycling, and then one of the cycling friends said, "Hey, you know what? 2 months later, we're going to Manali to Khardungla. Why don't you sign up and come with us?" Manali to Khardungla, interesting. Why not? Then
So I
I'm
think
like,
the pattern is that we have to give you the most crazy challenge
Yeah.
and you will sign up for that.
and
I think if Elon Musk is listening, we have a volunteer to go to Mars already here. The first blind volunteer.
so I talked to him, and
So would you, by the way, sign up for a trip to Mars if you were offered Mars or Moon or one of the space trips?
if they make it very touristy, then no.
So you want to like do it really hardcore.
I mean, do something where I get to do something, and there's more fun and
I think
elements.
maybe we'll have another show
Yeah.
only dedicated to that trip. But yeah, I think that's the pattern, man. I mean, you are.
There has to be a challenge.
You are a superhero. You are truly a superhero.
If there is no challenge, it's going to be boring. There has to be a challenge. You have to push your
But you see
standards.
challenge, right? I mean, there is challenge coming to you, and you. Or actually, in this case, challenges are seeking you, and
I thrive on challenges. And every opportunity which helps me stretch myself, every opportunity that helps me raise the bar a little bit, I ask myself, what's the worst that's going to happen?
you're
The
going to
worst,
fail.
yeah, the worst is going to be I'll fail, but that's no big deal. I fail all the time. Even if I fail, I can start again, right? And I would never know if I have the potential if I never start.
The fear of failure stops everybody from doing things which they are meant to do. But in your case, since you failed at every step, for you, failure was the natural instinct. And you're like, how worse can it be than this?
Absolutely, and that's one thing that I really, really am happy to my school for, because they failed me in kindergarten. I mean, who the hell fails in kindergarten?
Well, that's a good starting point.
So I was in intensely academic school, and they failed me in kindergarten, and I would have not remembered this, but I had very good friends.
Oh, who kept reminding you.
Absolutely. So coming back to how I ended up cycling. So this friend of mine signed me up. I'd never been there in that route. Here we were thinking of going in 2 months. About 2 weeks later, my friend says, "I'm really sorry. I think I can't do this." So he cops out.
So your friend who actually invited you to do this cops out.
Yes, who was actually planning all the logistics and everything. So in my head, I was committed, right? I had signed up. So come what may, now I was going to do it. I decided to do the whole logistics and everything on my own and go on this route. And that's what we did. And we did it in about 8 days. And interestingly, every single professional cyclist we met said this is not possible in under 12 days. You need 12 days to do this at least. You got a long cycle, you got 50% less oxygen, you got 5 mountain passes, and it's not possible.
I think now we know the theme. Whenever the word impossible comes to you, you do it. But I
That
think-
was known. There it was not like that. My tickets were booked for 9 days later. Simple as that.
Okay.
So I had to get it done in 9 days, and we did it in 8 days.
Okay.
But
That's fair.
But what was more thing was that people just keep naysaying.
But I mean, my point is that, there are so many naysayers in the world, and there are so many people who don't do things because of some or the other excuse. And in your case, it is literally that, that you just needed somebody to tell you you can't do something and you go ahead and do it. That too with a disability. But what kind of really is like, completely inspires me is that how you are helping others to do it. I mean, doing it yourself is different, right? You take your own risk, you decide on your own. But why is it important for you to get other disabled people experience this?
It's simple because the joy I get out of this, what I derive out of doing all of this, is what I want to share. And for me, there's greater joy in sharing your joy. There's greater joy in sharing what you have. to see those transformations in front of you. This is what has changed my life. This is what has helped me. This is what enriches me. And why not make it accessible? Why not make those same opportunities available to millions of people who have been told you can't do this? I'm in a position of privilege, and it's my duty to give back. It's a crime if you're sitting in a position of privilege and not do anything about it.
And there are so many people who have the resources to do exactly what you did and more, but they still don't do it. How do you not only get the mental strength, but how do you get the financial resources to make this happen?
I work hard, and for me, it's simple. That if you're driven by purpose, money is just a side thing. Money will come. Is your purpose very, very clear? Are the reasons why you're doing it clear? Is your focus clear? Are you authentic? Are you transparent? Money is very, very a byproduct. It happens. It comes.
So I'm sure the people listening to the show and friends and other people, they know of somebody who is disabled. If we know of somebody like this, how can we help them connect with you, and how can they start their transformation?
So I run a not-for-profit called Adventures Beyond Barriers Foundation. I set this up about 2.5 years ago. And we work with cross disability. So no matter what your disability, you might be blind and deaf, paraplegics, quadriplegics, amputees, they can get in touch with us. And we do a variety of adventure and outdoor sports. So from summiting Mount Everest and doing treks to Everest base camps, to a lot of treks in the Sahyadris, rappelling, rock climbing. We do marathons across the country, triathlons, duathlons. We do tandem cycling, scuba diving, paragliding, all kinds of outdoor adventure sports. So whatever the person wants to do.
And what do they have to? They have to sign up?
They just have to sign up. They just have to say they want to do this, and then we sit down with them, understand why they want to do it. We don't do it for any records, that's for sure. If you want to do it because you want some record and do some Guinness record and do some stunts, that's not what we do.
And where could these people be based? Anywhere in the world? Anywhere in India? What is your...
Absolutely. They can be anywhere in the world. Some of the things happen here in Pune. Some happen in up north. Some happen in various cities. So it really depends. So the very first thing we do is, once a person expresses interest in a particular thing, we first understand their needs. We understand what all are their needs, what is their disability, and what are the safety protocols we'll have to have in place. So we put safety first.
And do they get some kind of certification?
Yes, they also get certification. So for example, you could be a paraplegic, you could be an amputee, but you could be PADI certified.
And how can able-bodied people help you? I mean, so once, of course, there are the disabled
So
people.
Adventures Beyond Barriers is not just meant for persons with disability. We are an organization focused on persons with disability as well as able-bodied people to do adventure and outdoor sports together. And for us, inclusion is more important, and we do all our outdoor and adventure sports inclusive.
So what is the purpose behind ABBF then?
The purpose behind setting up ABBF is fundamentally very, very simple. If you ask me what is my biggest challenge as a person with disability today, and what has been my biggest challenge over the past 20 years, most people would think it's my blindness. Most people would think it's disability. But you're absolutely wrong. The biggest challenge is not my disability. The biggest challenge are social attitudinal barriers that we face every single day. Those are the mountains we have to climb every day. These attitudinal barriers that we face do not stem out of malice or ill intent or because people are bad. They simply stem from the fact that the mainstream community doesn't know any person with disability. There's no contact.
There's no awareness. There is no empathy.
And empathy will build only when you really get to know somebody. Empathy is when you start discovering about each other. And for us, the best way to shatter these stereotypes, prejudices, misunderstandings, misconceptions is get these two communities to come and play together.
And is this a unique problem in India, or this is a problem everywhere in the world?
This is more unique in developing countries, more unique in a country like India, primarily because in India there is still shame and stigma associated with disability. So many of persons with disability who are never introduced to the world.
No, but see, being disabled and doing activity and working in computer programming is now getting normal still. But doing adventure is still extreme, even in the
Yes.
US, I would say. Given the fact that they are
Yes.
such a litigious society, nobody
Yes.
will let you do all of these things, right? Because of just the danger of getting sued.
See, there is an element of risk in everything. All adventure sports, there is an element of risk. However, the element of risk for a person with disability is not more than an able-bodied person, because we ensure very high safety standards. We ensure adaptive equipment is in place. We ensure we have safety protocols. We have trained instructors. So it's not that this is a misconception that simply because I'm a person with disability, I'm a high risk as in adventure sports. The there is a slight degree of risk which is slightly higher than rest, but it's not that high. It's really not bravado. It's really not crazy suicidal.
So this is adventure. This is not extreme sport. So I think that's the difference between what you're trying to put together.
Like when I'm flying, is that an adventure sport or an extreme adventure sport?
Well, I will call it an extreme adventure sport since you can't see.
But if I say that we've other ways, we've built our way around it, so that my not being able to see does not matter.
Well, then it's definitely safer.
That's it. So we ensure safety in contingents. So, for example, we had contingencies like, for example, if my radio failed, then what? Then we had a boombox. If that, if somebody ran away with that boombox, then what? Then my instructor actually would shout out instructions loudly, and then we would see how far that goes, and we'd try every method out. Now, nobody can run away with my instructor's voice, right?
Absolutely.
So,
So I think with ABBF, it's quite clear you want to help other people, both disabled as well as able-bodied, to kind of come together.
yes.
Now, in this mission of yours, how can people help? How can people contribute?
So the very first thing to do is come and experience. Because when you come and experience, you discover so much about the lives of persons with disability, as well as go back with a changed perspective on your own life. You also realize that as individuals, we have such tremendous power to influence change, to make this world a better place. We've had CEOs and MDs of software companies, of large organizations, who never even knew that I could use a computer, or that blind people can use computers. And they came on a trek or they came on a marathon with us, and they started talking to us. They realized that this is what we do, and they go back to the organizations and say, hey, you know what? I met these bunch of blind programmers. Why can't we hire them? And they turn out to be more loyal employees, and hundreds of employment opportunities were created just after one marathon or one trek. For example, there's this prominent builder from Pune, where I come from, and all of 56 years old, he comes and runs a marathon with us, has built multiple buildings throughout his life. He was in the construction business for 36 years, only to come and run with us to realize the importance of accessible infrastructure. And when he learns about that, at the end of that marathon, he says, I promise you, every single building from now on I will build will be made accessible. And he's like, I'm not doing it because it's a nice thing to do. I'm doing it because it's the best business sense. Because it's not just for persons with disability. It's great for persons who are temporarily disabled. It's great for pregnant ladies. It's great for children. It's great for senior citizens. It's great for everybody.
Because you are changing people's mindset. You are showing them the extreme. And if people can do that, programming and using a computer is much simpler in that sense.
Yes, and it's about giving people paradoxical experience. So people come with this belief that, oh, blind people means this, and then suddenly you're giving them this completely paradoxical experience. Now they no longer can hold their old belief. That has to go away, because now this experience is an evidence they cannot refute.
So I think the point you are really driving is that, as I said, that The disability is in people's own thoughts.
Yes.
It's what is stopping them from doing bigger things in life and challenging themselves is their own inability to believe in themselves.
Yes.
And what you really do is help people discover that.
Absolutely.
And in this whole process, while ABBF is happening and everything else is going on, at your personal level, what are your ambitions? Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
For sure, I see myself growing potatoes and tomatoes. That's for sure. I don't see myself.
You'll be a farmer.
I'll be growing my own food for sure.
Okay.
Producing my own. I'll be producing what I consume. I don't see myself living in a city, so I see myself living amidst mountains and about in the midst of nature.
And any other big adventure coming up in your mind you want to do?
Oh, lots. I want to travel the world on my cycle. I want to make this world a better place. So I want to see a lot more persons with disability doing mainstream adventure sports. I want to see all the adventure bodies in this country to be certified as disability experts so that they can take on more persons with disability. I want to see schools I want to see the end of special schools. I really, really want to see the end of special schools. I want a more inclusive world.
So I know recently the government has come up with a policy around disability and there are so many things happening around it. So what are the good things out of it and what is still lacking and what would be your suggestion to the government to do actually?
From my perspective, the government of course needs to work on legislation. However, it also needs to work on legislation with spirit, because just having policies does not help. Being able to translate those policies at ground level is very, very important. Protecting the rights of persons with disability is what the government can do in a big way, and that's what they can do. I think that's the most important.
Because one thing they're working on is making at least the public infrastructure more accessible. I know there are new buildings and other things are getting, wheelchair access and stuff like that. That's all happening now.
Yes, that's a good thing. We have the Accessible India campaign going on, and so at least we're moving in the right direction. We still have a very, very long way to go, starting with getting the exact number of persons with disability in this country. So when you don't have the exact number of persons with disability, your policies are all meant for, your policy decisions are skewed, your budgets are skewed. So starting from there, we have a long way to go, but at least we're starting somewhere.
So tell me, we spoke about your plans for the next 10 years, but more importantly, what is the long-term future of your organization? Where do you see ABBF going in the next 10, 20 years?
The long-term vision of ABBF is to be able to scale it up, because we're the only premier organization in the world doing inclusive adventure sports with the aim to create empathy, with the aim to create social transformation. So we want to do this not just in our country, but we have invitations to do this in Tahiti. We have invitations to start this in Africa. We have invitations to start this in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. And we would like to scale it up because these are issues that are universal. These are struggles of persons with disability across. We're seeing such amazing results and transformations in the past 2.5 years with our work right here in this country, that we would like to scale it up. And
No, absolutely. I think, this is one thing which can truly go global. So coming to your global ambitions, you are taking risks literally every day. Are you fearing death?
not at all.
So what do you fear?
Interesting question. Probably getting my sight back.
So what you're saying is your fear is that one fine day you'll wake up and get your sight back.
Yeah, and that'd be traumatic. Imagine what I'd see.
Well, yeah, clearly the world is the way the world is going today. You don't want to see some of those things.
You bet. But yeah, death is not such a big, not something that I'm worried or I fear about. That's a given, and that's going to happen anyways someday. I can't be thinking about it and be the living dead. Make the most of every moment you've got. On 4th December 98, I was declared dead. Technically, I had tuberculosis. My lungs had failed. and I should not have been alive that day or the day after that, or the day after that. And here I am, not just alive but thriving.
Wow, that's inspiring and that's amazing.
But what I learned on that operating table was that was the line from this book called Tuesdays with Maury, which came back to me. That line said, "Once you learn how to die, you learn how to live." And that day, I really, really learned how to live, and every day is a bonus. So there's nothing to really worry about.
So coming to your days, tell me what is a typical day in your life? What time do you wake up?
The typical day in my life is there is no typical day. Every day is so unique from each other.
But what is your ritual? What is your morning ritual?
Morning ritual is just I get up pretty early. I get up around 5-ish, 5:30ish. I have a beautiful terrace, so
And you live alone?
I live alone. I've been living alone for about 18 years now. I make myself a cup of chai, and I spend some time by myself on the terrace. That's my heaven. And
And what's your
about-
typical breakfast?
can
And
be
who makes breakfast?
So I make some breakfast, or then I just I have a cook, or I make breakfast.
And what is your
Or
typical
I have now a person right next door who started this breakfast service. So I just order in. She makes homemade breakfast and homemade lunch. So I just order in because cooking takes time for me, and I feel that's just a waste of time for me right now.
No, what I mean to say is, what do you actually eat? Is there a particular? Are you
Whatever's
following-
available, but nothing. No diet. Nothing. I just eat.
poha or idli? What is your typical omelets? What do you
Usually poha, idli, upma. I hate now because I ate too much of upma, so I can't stand upma anymore. And omelets, bread sandwich, bread cheese.
And do you exercise?
Yes, but not every day, as most people think I should be. But I don't. Honestly, I don't exercise every day. I probably exercise about 2 or 3 times a week.
And do you meditate?
No,
You don't meditate.
I don't meditate. For me, going up a mountain, going for a walk, or cycling is my meditation. That's my. And usually, whenever there's a big thing coming up, like for example, now this cycling expedition is coming up. So naturally, my training regime, my exercise, everything changes. My routine changes. My diet changes.
And you were telling me that you also have one of the largest collection of ebooks.
Oh, yes.
So tell me more about that, and which have been your favorite books, and any books you recommend the people out here to read.
Oh, there's one book I recommend every single person to read, and that is The Little Prince by Saint Antoine Exupery. It's a must. It's
And
an absolute
what's the book
must.
about? Yeah, you
Go
can
read it.
summarize
It's
it. Just summarize
it's
it.
impossible to summarize it because every time I read it, every single time I read it, I find something new in that book.
Also-
it's all of 64 pages.
So 64 pages, right? I think everybody
And
can
it's
read The Little Prince.
and it's full of illustrations and drawings but the most profound book ever. In fact, it's the second most largest selling book after the Bible.
The Little Prince.
The Little Prince by Saint Antoine Exupery. I recommend that book highly.
Well, I'm going to read that for sure. Don't know about the rest of the people. What is your most valuable possession? Any object which you bought, which you use the most?
My most valuable possession would be the two most valuable.
Okay.
One's my laptop because it helps me read, write, connect to the world. So
And
it's-
which model is this?
So this is a Dell laptop that I've just got. The other most valuable possession is my white cane. And I don't.
And you have a special cane. I was seeing that. You were showing me how different it is.
Yes, so I have a roller tip cane, and the difference between a roller tip cane and a regular white cane is that a regular white cane has a tip to it, and all you can scan is that much of a surface, just the tip. With a roller tip cane, you can scan the entire surface in front of you while you're walking. You don't need to lift the cane. So you actually understand all the undulations, or if there are any ditches in the road, you scan the entire surface in front of you. So it's much
for
better.
all the blind people out there, you need to move from your regular canes to the roller tip canes. And can you get these canes easily?
You don't get them in India, but you can order them from Ambitech for about $35.
Oh, it's not that expensive.
Not that expensive. Not that expensive for the privileged few, to be honest. because we got to understand that 80% of people with disability who are blind are from extremely
But it
disadvantaged
shouldn't cost
backgrounds.
a lot to make it too, right? I mean,
It
just,
doesn't cost.
yeah.
It costs $40 to make it. We have made it, but however, because of patents and all these issues, we can't really make it or sell it. But we know how much it costs to make it. It costs $40. And
So, do you have any supplements? No vitamin D, vitamin. None of that.
no supplements. No supplements at all. My diet is just the regular diet, whatever everybody eats, a 1 square meal. That's it.
What are your indulgences?
Nothing really.
So you don't indulge in anything. Like what have you ever spent on yourself?
Yeah, when people force me to buy clothes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they force me to buy clothes. Please note.
Or what would you like to indulge in? Let's ask the other way.
I would love to indulge in experiences.
So what is the one experience you want to indulge in?
Like, for example, I would like to do a lot more adventure sports around the country, maybe outside our country to experience it. So that for sure would be an indulgence. I would like to travel. I love to travel. So that would be one.
And you've got many travel stories, right?
I'll travel a lot, yes.
And how do you encounter when people are like kind of shocked looking at you traveling? Because as I said, not many blind people travel. So how do you handle that?
For me, it's a great opportunity to connect and to create awareness and educate. If somebody does approach or does say something, that's a great connect for me to start having a dialogue. And I see it as that one person going changed after that dialogue is that one person. You never know what that person is, who that person is, and what he can do. But he could be your next champion ambassador. He could be a next champion for your cause and go do something. So I speak to every single person like they're going to go out there and change the world.
So Divyanshu, you travel very extensively. Tell me some of your travel tales. I'm sure you must be encountering a lot of them.
Hundreds of them. There's one that I remember weirdly. I was traveling by Air India, and this time I was really tired, and I was coming back after work, and I just wanted to be by myself. I was traveling from Delhi to Pune, and there's this gentleman who's sitting beside me, and this gentleman has a booming voice, and everybody's saluting him. So I'm like, okay, this guy must be somebody high up and whatever, and I'm praying to myself that he lets me be to myself. But as luck would have it, no. He starts a conversation and he's like, so son, what do you do? Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. All that happens. Halfway through the flight, I've had enough coke to keep me awake, and now I want to go pee. So I press the call button, wanting the attendant to come and so I can use the washroom or go there. And as soon as I press the call button, he's like, what do you want, son? I'm like, no, nothing. It's all good. Just need the host. The host comes, and he says to the air hostess, I will take care of this. I'm like, damn. And I'm saying, I really need to use the washroom now. So I'm like, okay. And he said, I will take you. And then he proceeds to. I start marching the aisle, so to speak, with him behind me, giving me instructions. And this is an army guy, clearly, with all his army people, half of the army in the plane. And I'm marching down the aisle with him giving me instructions. Keep left, keep right, all good, all good. And then I go to the washroom, I open the door, he gives me the directions in terms of the layout. And I'm like, thank you very much. Can I please now close the door? She's like, no, stand here. I'm going to be right outside. I'm like, okay then, right outside. So here, imagine this. He's standing outside the washroom. I'm standing inside. So the whole plane can see him, hear him, and not only that, he's giving me directions from outside. A little to the left, a little to the right. You're doing good. Excellent.
Well, this must be the most amazing pee you had ever had, I guess.
I didn't want to come out, man. I wanted to flush myself down that toilet.
This is hilarious. You also had a lot of exciting time with some of the air hostesses, you were telling me.
Exciting. I don't know what you mean. But yeah,
Well,
that's very interesting
yeah.
because often they don't, if I'm traveling with, let's say, somebody with me, then they wouldn't talk to me. They'll talk to the person next to me. They, what will sir eat? And I'm like, hello, sir knows what to eat because you don't have much choice except a crappy sandwich and a cup of coffee. So you can ask sir, sir can talk. And they get freaked out when I say, you can ask me, you can talk to me, I'm not going to bite. I'm blind, or they really scream like the blind supposed to be hard of hearing or something, and they are talking so loudly until you tell them, I'm blind, I'm not deaf, I can hear you. Or the minute you ask for special assistance, the first thing that comes is a wheelchair, because the universal sign of disability is a wheelchair, and they get offended if you say, I'm blind, I'm not going to use the wheelchair, thank you very much. They're like, wheelchair laya, abhi kya karoge? So then my bags have to go on the wheelchair. I'm not sitting on the wheelchair. My bags will go on that.
Well, they don't know you are a mountaineer, a trekker, and they're going to put you in a wheelchair. That's ridiculous.
Because the minute you say disability, that's a universal symbol. That needs to change probably. Because for them, disability equals wheelchair.
Wheelchair. Yeah.
And you must be in a wheelchair. That's it. So, or even more funnier is when I ask them, so if there is an emergency and the plane's on fire, when will you come for me? And now that puts them in a very difficult position because they say, we're going to come for you last.
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 Why is that?
That's the protocol. So I'd say, oh, so you mean the fire? There's going to be a blazing fire, and I'm going to wait for you, and you're going to come. That's right, you're going to come.
Wow, you're pulling their leg now.
But that's the fact. That's the fact.
Is that
a person with disability will be rescued last? That's the protocol.
So now that you've been doing all these adventures, you're meeting corporates, you're doing all these various activities, are you seeing a difference in attitude versus before and now?
In a limited way, definitely. In the amount of circle that I have, I'm seeing phenomenal change. Phenomenal change. And that's what motivates me, that's what reinforces me to continue to do this work. Because if in the past 2 years we've created hundreds of jobs, we've created scholarships, we've got a whole host of writers, scribes to write papers, we've got a whole host of people to record books for us, we've got people to come and tutor persons with disability, we've got more accessible travel across the country. So there's so many things that have happened because of these interactions, or large organizations making their stores accessible, making their workplaces accessible, all have started happening simply because of these 2 years of interaction.
Yeah. I also see that you are very, very active on your phone, and you use your phone, of course, without a screen. Tell me, how do you use Siri so much? I mean, Siri seems to be your really best friend.
Yeah, my laptop, my cane, and my phone are three most important gadgets I can't live without. They have to be with me. Phone, again, it's it makes me stay connected. So it's accessible. It's an iPhone, completely accessible.
I mean, we have exchanged WhatsApp messages, text messages. We have spoken on the phone several times. So how do you use the phone?
So my phone is no different to any other regular iPhone. So you go into iPhone, there is a setting under General called accessibility. You just go into accessibility, turn voiceover on, and there you are. Your phone starts to talk to you. And it becomes completely accessible for me because now it's reading out what is on the active screen. So it can be icons, it can be applications like, for example, I want to book an Uber. I can book an Uber independently. Or you send me a WhatsApp message, I can read and write and send you a text back. Everything that you do in a phone, I can do on my iPhone the same way, on the same iPhone. Just one feature that the company has built in as universal design.
If you had a wish for any app or any other feature any tech company had to build, what would that be?
I would the one thing I would like technology to really, and it's going towards that, but that technology needs to mature more, is image recognition. Once that starts happening, like if you notice, Facebook has started doing that now. It starts describing images to you. So it says two people, outdoors, close up. It tells me that much.
And there's a lot of work happening on image
Yes,
recognition, by the way.
yes. There's a lot of work that's happening in that area. Once that technology matures, then it can also tell me, here's a photograph of Vishal and he's in the outdoors, or Vishal is in the outdoors looking really happy. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, and the good news is I don't think so we are far away from that. I've already seen a lot of AI which can
Correct.
do it, and I think in a matter of maybe a few years, this would happen.
Right.
For sure. Any other piece of tech you would want apart from image recognition?
For now, that's the biggest challenge, image recognition. Because I already have technology that helps me stay completely independent. There's really nothing I miss. I'm absolutely independent. So, for example, if it's a bottle at home and I don't know the label, I want to read the label. I've got KNFB reader and I just point my phone to it and it reads out the label. OCR. Instant OCR. Or there's a letter or something printed, I just instant OCR it. Or I want to know what color of my shirt. How do I know I'm wearing a white shirt today? Because I know it's a white shirt because I use color recognition. So I just have to point my phone and it tells me what color my shirt is, what color my jeans are. Technology is really amazing. The other technology I would like to see is maybe we could have more of Braille technology coming in, and lower end Braille technology, lower end as in more affordable Braille technology. For example, Braille printers are very expensive. That's something that
And Braille books are very bulky. Right?
Very bulky and very expensive to make. Plus, they have to be published over and over again because as you keep reading them, the Braille embossing goes flat. So instead of that, if we can have refreshable Braille displays.
Or if you can just have audiobooks.
Or audiobooks. But what happens is different people have different modes of learning. Like some people are visual learners, some are auditory learners, some are kinesthetic learners. So you have to have different formats available for different people. I would get very bored and very sleepy listening to an audiobook because they're so slow.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read my book, I read ebooks because I can control the speed. So I go through a 600-page book in about 2 days. Whereas if it's an audiobook, my God, it'll take 2 months. So you have to have all formats available. You can't just say this is the only format. And but if you have Braille refreshable, like just imagine an iPad, but it's a refreshable Braille iPad. Then there's no longer the need for publishing a book.
So tell me something. Had on your 19th birthday, literally, you had not gone blind, and if you had just led a normal life, would you have still done all these things? Have you ever thought about that?
I often think about it. You can never tell. You can never tell what the next moment's going to be.
So do you plan ahead or do you live in the moment?
Both. I do plan, but I absolutely also live in the moment. And I do allow for things to happen in a way that they have to unfold. It's very complicated to answer that question for me. Because who would have thought 10 years ago that I would become a pilot? Or all of these things. I don't know. I never knew. If you asked me at the age of 19, this is what you're going to end up becoming, no, I didn't ever dream of that. But if you ask me before 19, what did I really envision? I always saw myself in the mountains helping people fall in love, and that's what I'm doing again. That's what I'm doing exactly right now. Not just helping people fall in love with the outdoors, because I believe God is in the outdoors, but also helping them fall in love with themselves. Also helping them believe in themselves. Also helping them make this world a better place.
So, as you know, there are millions of people with disabilities. And for people who are listening to this show, if there is one message you want to tell, what would that be?
Just believe in yourself. Don't let the world decide for you. No matter what. We really have to start learning to imagine possibilities. If you're faced with this thing that says, oh, but it's impossible, ask yourself, what makes it impossible? What can we do to make it possible? What different do we have to do?
So basically, challenge the status quo. Whatever they've been told to do, they should not be doing. They should be challenging and wanting to do exactly what the opportunities others have and ask for that.
Yes, ask for evidences and question why, and keep asking why, and you'll realize that you just need to think. This is what Einstein said, and that was very interesting. That you can't solve the problem from the same level of thinking that created it. So if you think it's a problem, then shift your level of consciousness to see what can solve it. That's where the solution is. Rephrase the problem. So if you tell me how fast a cycle can go, then most people would say a human pedal powered cycle would go 100 kilometers per hour, 120, 150. How much? How fast can you pedal a cycle? What's the fastest?
Well, certainly not 100, maybe less than that.
Less than that,
Yeah.
right? Now, what if you were to ask yourself, what's the fastest it can go? Maybe you say 150, right? But what about, why can't it go to 300 kilometers per hour? Because that's where our mind stops working, right? We say, no. So if it can go 100, it's going 100? Great. What is helping it to go 100? And what can I change? What needs to change if it has to go beyond 100?
So how much credit do you give to others to help you achieve where you have reached, or you have achieved this pretty much on your own?
You do need support. Like, for example, I couldn't have become a pilot without the support of my team, without the support of my instructor. We believed in each other. They believed in me and I believed in them. And we trusted each other with our lives. Any one of them making a mistake, I for sure would be dead. But we trusted each other, and you need people, you need support, you need people who believe in you, but it's also your responsibility to make people believe in you. You can't sit and complain that nobody believed in me and hence I'm a failure. That's crap. If nobody believed in you, then you need to go out there and help them.
But do you also come across people who take advantage of you or con you or do something which is not right?
Yeah, they've taken advantage, they've conned me, but that's simply because I've let them or I've just been stupid.
And give me an example of that. How did somebody con you?
Like just last time I came to Bombay, I had great trouble finding a cab. I was coming here in a rush, so I had some difficulty finding a cab. Finally, I found a cab, and I said, "You have to drop me here. You have to drop me to South Bombay," and I paid him the money. And he said, "I can't drop you to South Bombay, but I'll drop you to Vashi, and from there you'll be able. I'll ensure that I put you in another cab, who will take you to South Bombay, and all of this in the same amount of money. We fixed a deal." I said, "Great." And then at Vashi, he puts me in another cab, and everything is nice until 10 minutes later, this cab driver says that I have not been paid money. I'm like, what? But the deal was that he was supposed to pay. I'm like, why? He was supposed to pay you, not me. He's like, he told me you're supposed to pay me. I'm like, brilliant. We both have been. So yeah, that does happen. But that happens very rarely, very, very rarely. Or for example, sometimes you don't sign a contract or you don't sign something, and people take you for a ride.
But that happens in normal life.
Exactly, in business. And that's just because you're being stupid, or you think that this person will not do it, but they end up doing it for whatever reasons. And you live and you learn, and that's just the way it is. So last cycling expedition, one of the sponsors had promised that they'll get us a cycle. And the cycle never arrived.
But you still went ahead and did it anyways.
Because I got my friends from UK and Germany to get together in UK. I bought a second-hand cycle on eBay, and they actually got that cycle from UK to India. And it was an adventure getting that cycle here, and that cycle was not meant for those roads in Manali to Khardungla. The cycle broke down after 4 days. Literally, the bottom bracket came out. The frame broke. We had to hammer the frame in with our feet every 15 minutes for the next 5 days. Every time I hammered it in, I of course kicked myself and mentally kicked the sponsor. But that's okay. That's life.
That's part of life. That's part of life.
That's all right.
I must
laugh about it.
I must say, Divyanshu, this has been possibly one of the most exciting time of my life talking to you. You're so inspiring. And I think I'm taking away two big lessons from this, and I hope everybody else. In fact, there are lots of lessons from your story. But I think the biggest thing is that your disability is in your mind.
Absolutely.
As a human, you are born to do the impossible. You are born to do just about everything. It's just your mind which is stopping you, and I think you proved that. And the other thing is also challenging the status quo. I think people have already defined things for you, that if you have to grow up, if you are a doctor, your son needs to be a doctor. If you're an engineer, you need to be an engineer. If you are a teacher, and so on. So I think the problem is society and has already defined a set of path for most people, and most people are trying to follow that. But the reality is that it is challenging this status quo, which can make you do the impossible and make you a super achiever. And I think your journey from literally being in the darkness to being on literally top of the world at Khardungla, and now with all your other plans, wishing you amazing luck and success. And we are surely going to be in touch and going to figure out a way how we are going to help you in achieving your dreams. But it has been a pleasure, Divyanshu.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks a
Pleasure's all
lot.
mine. Thank you, Vishal. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, everybody.